What's going on to those international fans? This is Adi again, and I'm here for the third and final deep dive of the winter window. This one is for the winger that we just signed from Celtic on loan, Luis Palma. Luis Palma is signing on loan for the rest of the season with a buyout option in the region of 4 million euros. So you guys might remember the player from Aris Thessaloniki, and Aris actually still maintains a 20% sell on, but that is only a sell-on that kicks in if the fee is over 4.1 million. So if Olympiacos were to activate this option, Aris would not get a red cent. That's not pertinent to this scouting report at all, but I just find it hilarious, especially given the mess that Garipides got into with Marinakis earlier this season. Now, there's been a whole lot of whining and complaining about this signing on social media. After the insider spoke about John Arias from Fluminense, today I'm going to talk about the player that we actually got and that we could realistically afford to get. That is Luis Palma. And without further ado, guys, let's go on ahead and get started. Now, Luis Palma's profile on the ball, he's got a pretty decent center of gravity. Not the quickest, nor does he really have great top speed, but his acceleration is serviceable. You might see him use a step over here and there, but it's never serious. He's not one of those players that's using the step over to feint and actually change direction on people. He uses it really more for show. And almost any time I saw him actually use the step over, he never actually went anywhere. It was really just I don't know. I really don't know what his purpose for doing what is it was. Maybe thinking he could get somebody to jump, but there was never an intent to really change direction with it. His go-to moves in reality are a cutback with his left foot or a feint left, cutting right with his right foot. That's really it. Those are his go-tos, especially when he's coming down the left side. Control is mixed. He does keep the ball pretty close when he's not in stride, but when he's in stride, he's pretty liberal with how far he'll push the ball ahead of him. Now, the club signaled before this signing that they wanted a winger slash playmaker. They wanted somebody that could not only make us more efficient in the offensive third, but offer something different when playing against the park buses in Greece. So during this deep dive, I'm going to be evaluating whether or not he actually does possess those characteristics and whether or not he will fit into Jose Luis Mendilibar's system. So we're going to start, as we always do, with the player's goal threat. Now, Luis Palma scored goals from really only a few different situations. He has taken quite a few penalties in his time, both for Eyes and for Celtic, but most of his goals came in open play and under two specific circumstances. First, in counters or transitions where the forward or the winger on the opposite end of the field would have the ball and coming down the field, uh, he would be on the left side, the ball's coming down the right side. The ball would get played across from the right side, maybe if the player was just inside or just outside the penalty area, ahead of where the 18-yard marker is at the top of the box. They would get the ball down there, play it all the way across, and he would score that way. The other goal scoring chances would come from distance, usually maybe at the top left side of the box, maybe 20 to 22 meters out. So he had a few goals that he scored that were of that type of situation as well. He had a handful of goals that came from rebounds, one or two offset pieces, but really the entirety of his goal scoring resume was him receiving the ball from the other end of the field, him taking shots at the top of the 18, and just a couple of rebounds. So aside from that, aside from some set pieces, aside from some penalties that he took, that was it. That was the entire context that he scored from. Now, other shot opportunities he got that he didn't score from, again, the same types of contexts. I mean, I really didn't see much of other types of context that he even took shots from. I mean, he had a couple of attempts where, he would try to dribble through some defenders and rip off a shot after that, but they were entirely unsuccessful. If he could get to one defender, maybe dribble by him, you could get some space for a shot, but anytime he attempted to dribble through multiple players, it was never really successful. and he kinda looked a little bit awkward doing it. But so, his most successful moments in stride, receives the ball from the other end, takes the shot quicker, maybe getting some space and taking a shot from distance. This is really where, in that left side of the penalty area, those were really the contexts where he scored the most from. So, don't this isn't a player that, can beat 1, 2, 3 guys and then score a goal. He's really going to excel if he can release the ball sooner rather than later. Now, assists from Palma also came in very defined situations as well. At Celtic and Addis, he took set pieces, so he had a number of assists that came from free kicks and corners. But in open play, the majority of his assists came from crosses down the left side. Usually the crosses were further up, past where the 18-yard marker of the box was. He would cross very close to the end line sometimes, or maybe stop the ball, make a feint on the defender, and then cross if he had space. He did have a handful of assists from some very crafty through balls. I mean, these were these were lovely, both from pretty long distances, closer to the midfield that could even cut the midfield and defensive line as well. And then he even had some from some really tight angles as well to cut the defensive line. So absolutely insane passes, kind of reminded me of some things that Andre Horta did for us. But, just like with his goals, the assists that he had, the key passes, the shot assists that didn't amount to anything, all came in very similar context to how he actually got his assists. So we really know how he's going to get assists for us. He's not going to be running at defenders, drawing a lot of, the extra man here and there. He's not going to be dribbling on people and just laying a ball off. That doesn't happen very often for him. His assists are going to be primarily crosses and or these cutting through balls if he's able to get space. So the some of you might be thinking how I've explained it, maybe you're not impressed by that, but looking at the chart here in the goal creation statistic, he did enough in that 23-24 season to be arguably the best winger in the league and one of the most productive. So, he's pretty accurate with his crosses. His shot isn't bad either. He keeps things on target. He's got some decent power to it. And again, in Scotland and in Greece before that, it was enough to make him, one of the most productive wingers in terms of goal contributions on a per 90-minute basis. And all of this, by the way, is sustainable because his XG, expected goals, expected assists were very close to what he actually produced. So that shows us that there was a level of sustainability for that. Now, in build up for Celtic, Palma preferred to stay pretty far out wide on the flanks. He never really wandered central, had a preference to get moving up the line as the ball progressed forward. He could get involved more in possession if it was deeper in his own half, but the second the ball would cross the halfway line, you would see him want to get in stride and moving the ball forward. Celtic played against their fair share of park buses in the league. So, in those kinds of matches where they were pegged into the opponent's final third, I did see a decent amount of movement, especially in the previous season. This season, though, I saw a player that was a little bit more unmotivated. I saw less movement off the ball, just kind of wanting the ball and doing what he could to get a shot, a little bit more selfish, less for his team. And my hope is that if we get this Luis Palma that played for Celtic last season, that we are going to have ourselves a very useful player and build up as well on the flank, especially in transition. If we get the player that's disappointed at Celtic this season, we're going to see the fans react in a very similar way to how they did with Christopher Velde. Now, pass accuracy from Luis Palma, pretty mediocre. But when you get into what he's actually doing and we try to get to the context of why this is happening, you see that when he's involved in the shorter pass game, especially like in our buildup, very rarely misplaces the ball. But he takes a lot of risks in the final third between his attempts to cut the lines, lots of crosses. And these are things where, your probability of success is much lower. So he takes a lot more risks. He tries this a lot more often. So his pass accuracy is lower as a result. He doesn't carelessly lose possession. He's not misplacing the ball. He doesn't make a lot of idiotic mistakes. So just as he did for Celtic in their games where they would dominate possession, I do expect he could do the same for Olympiacos. I'm not expecting him to lose the ball a lot. I'm not expecting us to get frustrated with him. I'm expecting that he is going to, if he is going to lose the ball, it's going to be from these through balls and these crosses. That's where we'll see his pass accuracy get weighed down. Now, as far as defensive attributes, as we discuss with all like forwards, wingers, we're not really focused on the successful actions. What we really care about is if he's tracking back and if he's pressing pretty well. Luis Palma did seem to do the press well, at least in unison with his teammates. And at Celtic, I watched him win the ball a fair few times in the opponent's third, get himself a shot because he was able to anticipate where the pass was going. I saw plenty of those situations, but the one thing I did not see him do very well was track back and assist on the defensive side of things. This is something Mendilibar will have to get buy-in from with Palma. Early in the first season with Celtic, I was watching games where Palma seemed to track back or at least be more motivated to do so. But the more time went on, the less I would see that in games. In the air, Palma is not very good. I mean, not that we expect him to be. He can be scrappy on a set piece in those situations, get rebounds, fight for second balls, but he's not a guy that's winning you headers on either side of the ball. He'll be aggressive on the rebound, like I just said, but in maybe he'll help in other ways, but he's not a guy winning you headers or scoring from those headers. So don't expect that from him at all. You can expect a scrappy player in these situations, but that's about all you're going to get from him in that respect. Now, let's move on to the comparison. So, since the club made such a big deal about looking for a creative winger, creative playmaker to help us with our final third issues, it isn't enough for us just to compare him to, the guy that he's replacing, Yorgos Masouras. It's better for us to look at the player that has been our most effective winger all season and kind of see where he matches up. And that player for us has been Gelson Martins. If we're getting a player like Gelson Martins, but for the left side, that's a pretty good balance for us to have on both wings. Now, looking at the radar plot, we do see a lot of similarities here, especially with Luis Palma's last season, the 23-24 season, edging out Gelson's season with us currently in many respects, with Gelson having, of course, a higher goal conversion rate. Now, in terms of their profile differences, Gelson has a wider toolkit when it comes to dribbling. Gelson, one of his best attributes for us is that he's really the only player we have in the offensive third that can really beat players one on one. And as I explained earlier, Luis Palma really only has a couple moves in the toolkit. It worked well enough for him, in the previous season, but that's really all he can do. He's not going to dribble through multiple people. Gelson has more innovative ability to do that than Luis Palma does. Gelson has a better acceleration than Palma does. He's just generally faster as well. But what Palma seems to have that Gelson doesn't is a little bit more consistency getting into the box and getting those shots off. Gelson has a higher conversion rate, a higher goal conversion rate, but he's a little bit more inconsistent when it comes to getting into the penalty area and getting those looks into the penalty area. So really, we're talking about volume in that respect. Now, another thing that separates the two is deliveries into the penalty area or assists. Gelson's deliveries are less accurate than Palma's, even if he can dribble on players better. Palma's shots from distance also have more power to them than Gelson. So both players, they have the tendencies to move into the same areas, like in transition. They have that similar instinct to them, but the differences are kind of minute. Gelson is a better dribbler, better at carrying the ball, better at progressing the ball for us versus Palma's a little bit more effective, it seems, in the penalty area. He's going to get more shots. He's going to be more effective getting touches in the penalty area. So they have some little minute differences despite having the same instincts when it comes to progressing themselves into the final third off the ball. Now, in the press, Palma seems to be a little bit better at anticipating where the ball could be, or at least that's how it seemed when he was at Celtic. But again, as I mentioned before, he fails to track back. Gelson does a much better job of tracking back for Olympiacos than I saw what Palma was doing at Celtic. So a major thing to look out for here will be whether Palma will or will not commit to the press first mentality that Jose Luis Mendilibar has. If he's motivated and commits to it, then he can really be as valuable as Gelson, maybe even more so than Gelson in the system. Now, guys, before I go on and I deliver the verdict for you, there's a few things we need to touch on with this transfer. First, the wide-ranging disappointment among the fan base when we were advertised very heavily by the club insiders about John Arias. John Arias was a player that really could create chaos for opponents. I mean, if you watched any of his highlights, this kid has all the skill in the world. Incredible dribbling skill, can make something from nothing, and is just in general an exciting player. He's the type of player that puts people in seats. Unfortunately, the price tag way too high. And in the end, we have Luis Palma. Quite frankly, comes as no surprise to me. I'd been saying all over the place in the shows, in social media, that I did not think Arias was affordable. I didn't think it was possible for us to do. Maybe that's why I was less disappointed with the signing of Luis Palma than the majority of the fan base was. Now, does Palma represent an exciting player with dribbling skill and innovative ability to make something from nothing? No, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be useful for this club. He has attributes that Mendelebar values, and he does have an end product. Remember, part of the problem with this team has been that for so long, Gelson was the only winger that performed consistently for us. Now, Christopher Velde is kicking on. And if Palma can give us what Gelson does on the other side, and he gives that to us on the left side, between him and Veld, we would have a very balanced attack on that left side. We've got Gelson on the right. We have Costulas, who also helps out as well. We'll have good balance. Now let's talk about the real situation. We sent Masuras to Bochum on loan, a player that we all recognize is useless under Mendilibar's system. And I'm not saying this to take any away from Masuras. I love Masuras, and I'm not saying that he's a terrible player and that he hasn't done anything for Olympiacos. But he does not fit Mendilibar's system. It is clear. Ever since Mendilibar arrived, Yorgos Masuras has had 2 goal contributions in a year. Unheard of for him. In this respect, Luis Palma is a clear upgrade over Yorgos Masuras and then represents, in that respect, a strong reinforcement of the roster, even if he isn't what most fans wanted or at least prioritized or thought that we should be going for. So, taking this into consideration, I give this transfer a thumbs up. Not a 2 thumbs up, but it's a thumbs up. I'm happy with this transfer. And I've repeated for months, along with my co host, that this squad did not need an overhaul. It needed tweaks. Just some minor things to get us over the line. And this is one of those tweaks that I think is improving us down the stretch. It gives us a bit more depth and options in the offensive unit, even if he's slower to transition and get match fit. We have another winger that can come as an impact sub, play in Greece, save the others for Europe. A player that we know will have more to offer us than a guy like Yorgos Masuras did. Along with a buyout option, also, guys, it's a very low risk move as well. If he kills it, we buy him out for a decent fee as we hopefully prep for Champions League. So there you guys have it. I hope you guys enjoyed the deep dive for Luis Palma. I really do believe that this player can do a job for us in the second half of the season and that the fan base will come to think this signing was a good one. Spread the love if you guys like these scouting reports, and remember, they're exclusively for Patreon. I hope I was able to give you guys some insight. Help us share this with the red and white community. I'm going to reiterate for a last time. I really think Luis Palma will do something great for us this season. Of the 3 transfers, I think him and Horta will be 2 players that we will look back on and say, hey, these signings will help us get the edge that we needed to push on in the league. Now that the team is kicking gear, I think these guys are coming in at a great time. So thank you guys again. I'm Adi. This is Studios International, by the fans, for the fans, and we will see you all next time.